Last weekend, Philadelphia Eagles tight end Zach Ertz managed to return to the game and finish playing after breaking one of his ribs. But unbeknownst to him and the Eagles medical staff at the time, Ertz had suffered more than just a rib fracture on this heavy hit, actually having a kidney laceration as well. Welcome back everyone to your #1 source for learning about everything related to sports injuries and sports medicine news. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about what happened here with Zach Ertz with his rib fracture and the subsequent kidney laceration. We'll take a look at the hit and then talk about what the medical staff is going to be doing to assess for this there at the game. We'll go over some basic anatomy related to rib fractures and then talk about kidney lacerations, and finally finish up by discussing how these are managed and what this might mean for the rest of Ertz's season. Make sure and go subscribe if you like this type of content and want to stay up to date with my future videos, and let's get started. Zach Ertz took this huge hit to sort of his left lower back / kind of flank region early in the game, came out, but then was able to return and finish playing with what we found out was a fractured rib. The specific place where Ertz took the hit on his body is important when we think about what types of other organs could be injured, and so we'll talk about that here shortly. But let's first address the question of whether or not the Eagles medical staff did something wrong here or why they missed this injury. Kidney lacerations are frequently delayed in their presentation after these types of injuries, and they're really hard to pick up with just basic exams, so the Eagles medical staff really did not miss anything here or do anything wrong. When they get back into the locker room, they do an X-ray and then they can see the rib fractures, but guess what? If we look at this X-ray, you have no idea where the kidney is or if there's any bleeding. You're relying more on your physical exam and just the severity of the rib injury itself. If there's a bad enough kidney laceration, you could have changes in your blood pressure that the team would be able to pick up. You might have a more serious abdominal exam, and you might see the player having kind of gross blood in their urine. But these are hard to pick up, especially because of the overlying pain from just the rib fracture itself. So no fault here at all, I don't think, to the Eagles medical staff. Let's go next to our anatomy of the ribs and the intra-abdominal organs to talk about kind of some of the interplay between rib injuries and organ injuries. We have 12 pairs of ribs. Ribs 1 through 7 come around and attach directly onto the breastbone. Ribs 8 through 10 attach to the cartilage on the rib above. And then ribs 11 and 12 are actually what we call floating ribs, meaning the portion in the front isn't actually attached to anything, it's just sort of floating within the body. Anytime we see injuries to the lower ribs, specifically kind of 9 through 12, we have to have higher suspicion for an injury to one of the organs like the kidney because of how the ribs extend down into the abdomen area. Looking straight on at the abdomen here, the liver is in the upper right quadrant and the spleen is in the upper left quadrant. You then have your kidneys on either side, and the kidneys are more in the back side of the abdomen, sort of right up against the back of the abdominal cavity. Going back to the hit here on Ertz, we can see he took the impact kind of on his left lower back / flank area. Remember, his liver is over here on the right side, and we have to think of the spleen and the kidney here on the left. So a spleen injury is another possibility in this type of hit, and a liver injury would be lower on the list because it's not the direct blunt force where that trauma is at. Like most injuries in sports, we can also grade the severity of a kidney laceration. Grade 1 is actually just a contusion or a bruise to the kidney or a hematoma. Grade 2 is when we get to an actual laceration or a cut into the renal cortex. The renal cortex is sort of the outer kind of meat, so to speak, of the kidney. And a grade 2 involves a cut that's less than 1 centimeter in depth. Grade 3 is then a cut that's greater than 1 centimeter in depth. And then a grade 4 is a cut that's big enough that it goes all the way down into what we call the renal pelvis, which is where the urine gets collected before going down into the ureter and into the bladder. A grade 5 is then basically a complete sort of explosion of the kidney. A grade 1 is very mild, and most of the time you're not even worried about talking to a surgeon. It's simply rest and recover. Grade 2 through 4 is more of a gray zone where you're probably going to talk to a surgeon just to get an opinion on how bad the injury is and if you need to do any surgical repair. And then of course a grade 5, you're definitely going to talk to a surgeon because this is a really major injury. So what does this mean for Ertz the rest of the season? Now, at the time of recording this, the Eagles' playoff chances are still in question, so this might not matter. But if they do make the playoffs, there's a very, very slim chance that Ertz could come back, even if the Eagles make it to the Super Bowl. Most of these guidelines put a return to play between 2 to 6 weeks. Certainly a grade 2 is going to come back quicker than a grade 4, so this is where that range comes from. We don't know the full severity of Ertz's injury, so it's possible it's on that more mild side and we could see him back in that kind of 2-3 week window. But I think Eagles fans should be prepared for him to miss the rest of the postseason, even if they make it all the way. But I wish Zach Ertz the best in his recovery. These types of injuries, whenever we're involving the abdominal organs, can be life-threatening, and so he's very fortunate to have avoided a more serious injury. Thank you as always for watching the video, everybody. Let me know any questions or comments you have below, and until next time, we'll see you later.